there are going to be a lot of spoilers in this. This is off the cuff. This is just my reactions to this book. So I just want it to be as straightforward as possible. And I like when people talk about spoilers, because what's the point if you're not going to talk about the book? All right, Komodo. There's only one camera, but you get the idea. Or I do. This is... God, this is ridiculous. Okay. Jesus, it's kind of cattywampus a little bit. Oh well. I'm gonna go with it. Hello, I'm David Lighty. This is a part of David Lighty Reviews. Today I'm gonna be reviewing The Exorcist as a part of my horror reviews segment. I really enjoyed this book. I just want to start by saying that it would be nice for me to go back. I haven't seen the film in a really long time, so I'm going to try not to talk too much about the film because I just don't remember it that much. I saw it in high school. I remember maybe 2 or 3 parts of it, and it's the parts people always remember: her projectile vomiting, and then her with her head tilted back and walking like a crab or like a reverse spider or something. I think she's even on the wall at one point, and then I just remember the bed flying up and down. So I guess I remember like 3 or 4 parts, but mostly it was just with the girl doing weird stuff, which makes sense why I would remember that. I think those are the main things that people remember about that film. But the book, on the other hand, was a different experience, surprisingly. I knew that I should go back and read this. Something in me kept telling me that I needed to go back and read this book, and I'm glad I did. I'll have to go and see the film again because I think I just need a huge refresher on it. I don't remember a lot of things. I just got done reviewing Mexican Gothic, which I did like, by the way, and it has a lot of similar elements to The Exorcist, except I just think The Exorcist does a lot of stuff better. It's just The Exorcist is so understated in such a good way compared to Mexican Gothic. Mexican Gothic, while I would love to see this film, there's so much crazy stuff happening, especially at the end of it. And there's so much going on. And in The Exorcist, there's stuff going on, but it's so subtle and it's psychological and it's poignant. And that was the one thing that I was saying was missing from this book, because I did really like this book. I don't know if I loved it. I really liked this book. But the thing that just wasn't jiving for me was it just felt emotionally cold. It just felt like I didn't care about these characters. Not only that, I just didn't feel for them. And I think obviously you have to have some type of aspect of the characters' relationships that you can relate to that makes you feel something for them. I did feel that in The Exorcist so much. This is a funny book cover, by the way. My daughter said that this is how she feels when she doesn't get enough sleep. I thought that was funny. She said that to me like a few months ago when I read it. And it cracks me up every time I look at the cover because I just think of that comment. My daughter's hilarious. Anyway, that was the thing about this book, is that the relationship between the mother, Chris, and her daughter, Reagan, it felt real. They don't spend a lot of time together in this book, except for in the beginning and maybe a little bit at the end. But you just understand the mother's plight. You understand her struggle. Even though maybe their relationship, it's kind of glossed over in a sense. You understand this mother just trying to get her daughter back and not understanding how to fix her, so to speak, or how to fix this problem that she's having, whatever it may be. And so, while it is a slow burn, like Mexican Gothic is a slow burn, The Exorcist just never really felt like it was a slow burn, because I always felt like I was along for the ride with the characters. You just felt like this mother is trying to figure what the hell is going on with her daughter and how she can make her better. One of the things that I wasn't super enthused about, which I don't think actually looking back is a problem, because I think it's how the author actually wants you to feel about the situation. But one of the things that I was not a huge fan of from the get-go was that Chris, the mother, is an actress. I just think, of all the things, why does she have to be a freaking actress? I just think it's such a boring thing. It's so vain. It's so cringe, as the kids say nowadays. It's just, of all the things she could be, why does she have to be in entertainment and the arts? As a writer myself, as somebody who's in entertainment and the arts, I try to avoid having the characters be writers, be actors, all those things. And maybe that's partly a me thing, definitely, but I think my point to it is that I want to make sure that it's justified. And so, because it's the easiest thing that I can write, because it's the closest to what I do and what I am. And the flaws are so obvious, right? Like, an actor, they want attention, and they tend to ignore placing attention on other people when they need it in real life, because they want attention, they want to be seen, and they want to be glorified. And so all those things are just so immediate and obvious to me. So I don't like it when characters are these things. She's dealing with such a serious matter of, like, her daughter might actually be possessed by the devil or by some type of demonic entity. You just think, like, does she have to be an actress? But I think there are a few things going on here. One, this book was written, or at least this book was published in 1971. So it was a long time ago. It was a different time period. Not everybody was an actor. Not everybody and their uncle was an actor. Not everybody and their sister was an actor or entertainer or what have you. So anyway, it was a different time period then. There were way less actresses. It makes sense that he picked her as an actress because it is the most vain thing. And so, for instance, in the beginning of the story, she's really worried about this job opportunity that she gets to direct a film. And she just wonders if she's going to be taken seriously. And meanwhile, her daughter is just starting to have these problems of psychological outbursts. She pees, I think, in public at a party that Chris throws, an entertainment party that Chris throws, and Chris gets very embarrassed. And then she starts to have serious concerns of what's going on with her daughter and why is she acting out like this. And she starts cussing. And so she's wondering, like, does she have Tourette's? Is she just acting out? She thinks that it's her daughter Reagan acting out because her parents are divorced, I believe, somewhat recently divorced. And that's makes sense that an actress would be divorced because, yes, actors in particular, they're going to be hooking up with people and they're going to be pretending like they're in relationships with people. And that's going to blend over into the relationship in not so great ways. Anyway, she's divorced, atheist, also kind of in line with a lot of entertainers and particularly actors. She's vain to a large degree. She really cares about her daughter, and that's really the thread of the story, I think. But she is vain. And so in the beginning, she's really questioning whether she should take this directing job, and she keeps asking her butler, Carl Angstrom, if she should do this job, if it makes sense for her right now. And he's encouraging her, but also it's like, he's your butler and, he understands the chain of command. He understands that his job is on the line and he needs to pepper you up a bit and that you have somewhat of a fragile ego because you're an actress. But anyway, she wants to have people take her more seriously as a director. And so she agrees to take this job, or at least she's considering it, deeply considering it and going over the script and whatnot in the beginning. That was a huge tangent, but my point being that I wasn't a huge fan of that at first, but it does make sense because it's her grappling her faith, which is in line with her vanity. And really, she just needs to be figuring out what the hell is going on with her daughter. It's really a fight for survival of her daughter's soul, ultimately. And one of the things I really like about this book is the back and forth between not only the priests with Chris, the mother, but the priests between themselves, grappling with their faith, grappling with the situation. Is she actually demonically possessed? This takes place in Georgetown. Near Georgetown University is where the mother lives. There is a Jesuit facility, I believe, within Georgetown or nearby Georgetown, which the priest occupies. So she reaches out to a few doctors, and the doctors can't figure out what's going on. They say, look, this is a freak situation, what's going on with your daughter right now. She's doing things, she's contorting her body in ways that I have never seen. This seems more like demonic possession than anything else, and I don't even believe in that. But there are people who do believe in that, or at least who are qualified, who will perform an exorcism or a mock exorcism, meaning pretending to put on an exorcism to rid whatever type of psychological disorder this may be, or whatever the heck is going on with your daughter. But I don't think I'm fully equipped as a doctor to take on this case and this patient, your daughter. And so she takes her 12-year-old daughter home, and then she ends up reaching out. I think she gets advised to reach out to this priest named Karras, I believe. So she reaches out to this priest, Damien Karras, Father Damien Karras, which I think is interesting because I think Damien actually gets used a lot as the devil's son. So it's weird that his name is Damien Karras, who's currently going through a crisis of his faith, coupled with the recent loss of his mother. Yeah, so he's coming to terms with the recent loss of his mother and his faith. He definitely doesn't believe in demonic possession. He's hesitant to take this on, not really buying that it's a case of demonic possession. So he thinks it's bogus and it's some type of psychological thing. And that's the interesting thing about the Jesuits, particularly in how they're portrayed in this story in The Exorcist, because a lot of the priests within Jesuitism, in at least how they're portrayed in this book, they're very psychologically oriented. They read the DSM-5 or whatever it was back then. I don't know if the DSM existed back then, but they read those kind of hefty medical jargon type documents, and particularly psychologically rooted ones, over taking a strictly Christian ideology, which I think is really interesting. So part of the reason why he's having trouble with his faith and with coming to terms with things like an exorcism is because a lot of the Jesuits take on a more scientific understanding approach to how you grapple with these things. And so anyway, he agrees to take it on, but as a kind of mock exorcism, so to speak, or at least he wants to observe her. I think they go to see a doctor together, and she does some weird stuff. And then where the line gets drawn is Reagan has a huge fit. Karras comes over, and the bed is starting to lift as she's in it. And then she says something to him that she couldn't possibly know. And she says it in another person's voice, which is pretty freaky. I remember that from the film when I initially saw it, and I remember thinking it was kind of cheesy. But again, a lot of time had been removed since the film had come out, and different generation, and we'd seen a lot of stuff that was inspired by it that spoofed it, and so it was harder for me to get into. And then also, the effects weren't what they were when the film came out, and so I think there were things like that. So it'd be interesting for me to go back and see what I think of this film. I know that, or at least I believe that The Sixth Sense takes pretty big inspiration from this film, because I know that M. Night Shyamalan really loves the original Exorcist film, and I can see that, having read the book and being such a big fan of The Sixth Sense, is that there is a dramatic aspect to this book, that this story reads like a straight drama, which is similar to The Sixth Sense. The Sixth Sense is kind of like this family drama between a mother and her son, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with her son. So the Cole character, that would be like Reagan, and then the mom would be like Chris, and then Dr. Malcolm Crowe would be like the priest Karras. He would be kind of like a combination of Karras and the other priest, who is Father Lancaster Merrin. And I'm going to get into him, even though that the mother character in The Sixth Sense obviously doesn't know that there is this Dr. Malcolm character. Anyway, I think this book has a lot more aspects in it that aren't necessarily in the film. There were 3 points where I cried in the book, and I don't remember the movie being that poignant, but again, I wasn't as into it. I didn't really understand it. I didn't have a daughter of my own back then, and so I think I have a different level of understanding, a different level of maturity coming into this story now, that maybe I would appreciate the film more and missed some things that were actually there that I didn't see at the time. So it would be interesting for me to go back. Other aspects of this story that I liked the Carl character, the butler. He was funny, and he also was interesting. There's a point where there's this detective character, Detective Kinderman, and Detective Kinderman's kind of suspicious of everyone. He's suspicious of Father Karras at first. He believes Father Karras might have killed Dennings because Dennings dies and falls down some stairs pretty suspiciously during one of Chris's parties early on in the story. And then it becomes apparent to Karras, at least, and eventually to Chris, that her daughter might have done it. That Reagan actually might have thrown Dennings down the stairs. And Burke Dennings is her director friend, Chris's director friend, the mother, who's kind of a cheeky guy. And so he falls down these stairs and dies. But the amount of force he was pushed down the stairs with it's not inhuman, but it's somebody with a lot of strength. And I think that is what makes Kinderman go directly to Karras, because Karras is kind of this outsider character that's coming in who he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's told that he's treating the daughter, but so he doesn't think it's the daughter, at least the detective Kinderman, because how could it be this 12-year-old innocent little girl who's having some huge medical issues, right? I don't think he knows for sure that it's psychological yet. And then he starts to suspect her toward the end, which gets interesting. And Karras and I think Father Merrin at one point, who's the older priest who comes in to initiate the exorcism because he's done it before, they both start guiding Chris through a conversation of, if Kinderman starts to look at the daughter, how they're going to explain that and how they can potentially get her off getting a sentence because she is so young, and because it might have been psychologically induced, or as Merrin believes, demonically induced. The only other parts I really want to go into about this book, the emotional aspects of it, the mother coming to terms with her faith. The thing that got me was, so Merrin is this character, he's the older priest, he's dealt with exorcisms before, and I believe initially when Father Karras says he's going to take on this exorcism, he has some person who's above him within the Jesuit society who tells him that, okay, you can take on this exorcism, but you should really, because you're struggling with your faith and you don't even believe that exorcisms are real, we should probably get somebody else to initiate the exorcism if you're going to do this, but you can follow under this person's lead. And so his superior recommends Father Lancaster Merrin. So Father Merrin is the older, more experienced priest who does not have any issues with his faith. He is very much a believer in God, the devil, everything. He's seen it all, kind of a character. He's just come back from an archaeological dig in northern Iraq. He found this ancient relic from his dig, and the ancient relic that he found was a small statue buried in the dirt, and the statue was of the demon Pazuzu. Pazuzu is an actual Assyrian demon, and the Assyrians were in Iraq, Iran, around that area. And so he takes this to be an omen because he believes to have basically battled this demon before, this Assyrian demon Pazuzu before, with an exorcism that he did in Africa. And so when he comes in to take care of this exorcism for Reagan, he starts to suspect that it's the same demon, that it's Pazuzu possessing this girl. And so he's a big believer in fate. He believes that she was possessed by this particular demon and that he was called in for a reason connected to fate that would ultimately, their two fates would cross paths, and they do. Meanwhile, Karras is following him around and skeptical of the whole situation. So the poignant scenes become, this is a huge spoiler, so turn it off if you haven't read it and you want to read it, because this is big in the story. Lancaster Merrin has some type of arrhythmia. He has a heart condition, and basically he sacrifices himself fighting this demon that's inside Reagan, and the demon gives Merrin a heart attack in sacrificing himself, and he tells Karras basically that he needs to take this on himself and he's not going to make it. In that, Karras kind of becomes a believer in seeing what happened to him in that moment, and so he's going to do anything in his power to protect this girl and to help this helpless mother who just wants her daughter back. I'm going to rewind for a second and then I'm going to finish that. But some of the things I glossed over was it was really nice how they built up to the demonic possession. I talked about how there's a conversation going on, is she demonically possessed? Is this some type of strange psychological disorder? Is it some strange pathological disorder mixed in with this girl's precociousness? But then she's able to contort herself in such strange ways. She's able to speak languages she couldn't possibly have learned. She's able to say things in these languages that are just so far beyond her years that it's just almost becomes impossible to explain. So that was really nice. And then early on, there's some like shelves moving and stuff like that, and the bed moving. And so it's not only she's able to contort herself in weird ways, but she's able to like move her body and do things in weird ways. She can projectile vomit on command, which is pretty impressive. She does it like 3 or 4 times throughout the book, which is absolutely disgusting. She's just like puking on these Jesuit priests' faces and on her tutor Sharon's face and on Carl Angstrom, the butler's face. She really likes puking on people's faces, so she does that quite a bit. And a lot of that's in the movie, but I think there's more of that in the book. So if that's your thing, then this is your book. But no, the main things that I like though were actually not those elements. I mean, there was some creepy moments to that, more so than what I felt in the film. But again, I'll have to go back. But what I wanted to say was there was an interesting conversation to be had about the mother had some of these strange books on demonic possession in her small library at her house, or her apartment rather. So there's a debate over whether the girl got into the books and read them and then applied the theories that were in the books to make it seem like she was possessed. It gets to a point where it seems like more believable to think that she's demonically possessed than to think that she could be that psychologically disturbed and precocious to be able to do that as a 12-year-old girl. Even the mother says, I have an easier time believing that she's been infected by the devil at this point than any of these psychological theories that you're coming up with to Karras. And so anyway, the other time that was like really emotional for me, and I cried a lot when I read it, was when, again, huge spoiler, but Father Karras, he believes after he sees Merrin die, his superior, and he dies in his arms basically. Karras takes on the burden of the demon needs a host, and he needs to kill the demon by having it host inside him and kill himself, to do the most selfless act. That's how you fight the most evil force, is what he comes to terms with, or at least to get it out of this girl. So he beckons it to come to him, and then it possesses his body. It's either him killing himself or a combination of that and the devil trying to kill him. But I think what happens is he sacrifices himself by jumping out the window while the devil's inside him to kill the devil, or to get it away so it can't infect the girl again. You can't demonically possess her again, or she can't be demonically possessed by it again. And so he jumps out the window and he kills himself. In a true act of selflessness and in a true act of faith, because he now believes in a higher power, so he has the willpower to do such an act, knowing that he's not going to come back, at least not in the material sense. So I thought that was really beautiful, really sad, but also really just powerful, because you think how strong the human will is and what we'll do to protect people who we aren't even related to, just for the sake of goodness. And just thought that was really touching for such a book that was dealing with so many dark aspects of humanity, of spirituality, and so forth, for it to conclude with this man who struggled with his faith, dying to help a mother who just wanted her daughter back, and to prevent her daughter tormented by this demonic entity that wouldn't leave her alone. So I'm going to give this book... It's basically a 5, but I'm going to give it 4.5 because there needs to be some room for me to find a 5 if there's anything better than this, which I highly doubt, because this is a magnum opus. It's just so well written. There are not a lot of words that could be taken away from it. It was compelling throughout. I bought everybody's story. As much as I didn't like the character having to be an actress, I felt like it was justified and Again, the time period that it was written makes sense that he chose that, and just the story in general did need that. She did need to be vain in order to learn her lesson about what's important in life. And just every other element just really landed home for me. So I would highly, highly recommend this book for horror fans and non-horror fans alike. People who are looking for a good drama. This is a good drama that has horror elements, and it has characters that you ultimately care about, whether you're religious or not religious. I'm not religious at all, really, but I am spiritual, and so I think I connected on that level. But even if you're not spiritual, if you're atheist, the main character in this is atheist, Chris. Whatever you are, it doesn't really matter, because this is a book about humanity. Whether you even believe that she's demonically possessed or not, she's dealing with something beyond this realm, in the sense that it's an emotional, psychological thing, at the very least. The way the story is written is kind of hard to deny that it's not demonic possession, at least within this fictional context. But that being said, even if supernatural horror is not really your shtick, I would still recommend this book. I think it's a masterpiece. So, yeah, that's it for David Blatty Reviews. More to come. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.